40 Watters, welcome to this week's episode, 40 Watt Podcast. Before we get into the main episode with Adam Miller talking about his new record, we talk about his past record and we talk about his new signature guitar. We have a great time over on Patreon. We talk about technique and tone chasing and just approaches to amplifiers. It's just an all-around wonderful chat with Adam. I love every time I get to catch up with him. But first, we need to talk about some things that housekeeping things. I'm going to be quick, I promise. So please listen to all of this. First of all, thank you to Patreon supporters over on patreon.com/40watt podcast. $5 a month gets you extra episodes. It's also going to start getting you some backing tracks. If you want to subscribe for free over there, there is a free option to just follow the Patreon and you'll get some of the updates. You won't get the bonus episode, but will you get some other things? Additionally, this podcast has some sponsors that I really need to talk about because I love that they help make this show possible. First of all, number one, longtime supporter, Barry over at Grez Guitars. Barry just recently posted one of the classiest single cut Mendocino basses I've seen on his Instagram. You really need to go check him out. Barry's just making dreams come true. Just being honest, he did it for me with the Grand Tour. He makes some of the coolest guitars, and he can build something you're going to love and make an heirloom piece for you. Builds out of reclaimed redwood, top tier guitars. Honestly, I know they're expensive, y'all. They can be. I think they're a steal at the price he's charging. So go check them out. Go over to Instagram. Additionally, want to talk about a couple of pedal sponsors. We have, first and foremost, we have Maris Pedals. Angelo, Terry, and Gina over at Maris have become dear friends of the podcast, and I love all of the stuff they're doing. I'm still deep diving into the Enzo X that was released a couple months ago. It is such a rad pedal. I am not a synth person, but I'm really enjoying just exploring sounds with that pedal. Also, the Mercury X is still the best reverb pedal I've ever played. Last but not least, I want to talk about Summer School Electronics. Speaking of reverb pedals, I can talk about it. Finally, the Spring Break reverb is out. This is a super cool reverb. It is a Benton block kind of reverb, Benton brick kind of reverb, but gets pretty washy. But my favorite part is it's got a delay built in from the snow day delay. You flip that on, you've got mixed delay and feedback, and that only affects the reverb trails, which is super cool. It gets real kind of it gets really kind of atmospheric and ambient. I think you'd like it. Go check it out. Mark over at Summer School's making some super cool stuff. Lastly, there are some links down below. You can help support this show. There's a Reverb affiliate link. There's a Sweetwater affiliate link. If you're going to buy gear, and I know you're going to, and you want to help support the show, click those links below. Please, every time you go by, a small portion of it kicks back to me to help keep the show going, and it costs you nothing extra. Remember to rate, review the podcast, click subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, hit the bell icon, all those things. They help spread this podcast to other people and build the listenership so I can keep doing it. Thank you for your support. Hope you enjoy this episode with Adam Miller. Forty Waters, welcome to this week's episode. I'm back, y'all. Took a couple of weeks off. Things happened. Had Blues Festival going on, and that just takes all of my time for a couple of weeks. This year was wild. I was only supposed to have one gig, and I was providing backline for a stage, and it was going to be super easy. Long story short, I ended up performing 2 more times, and I provided backline for like 2 other stages. So it was a crazy weekend of hauling gear and moving things around, and it's just wild. Glad to be back in the seat here, bringing podcasts to you. This week, y'all have already seen the thumbnail, or you've already read the title. You know who's here. Excited to have returning guest Adam Miller. Adam, how are you, sir?
Good, man. How are you? I'm stoked to be back here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's been, we got to see each other at NAMM, which was great.
Yeah.
And we had seen each other, I think between the last time you were on the show, we saw each other at Fretboard Summit in Chicago.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, but man, you've had a lot going on. So we've got a whole bunch to catch up on here.
Yeah, it'd
Um,
be awesome.
yeah.
Stoked to chat.
It's hard to choose where to pick a jump off point, but let's um let's talk about the gear stuff. We're gonna hit the gear stuff early because
Great.
normally we hit those late. But you were actually a few months ago, I think 4 or 5 months ago, you were on that pedal show. You had just picked up your brand new signature Nick Huber guitar. Let's
Yes.
talk. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that
Yeah, man.
experience.
Well, I have it here. So one I prepared
Oh, yeah.
earlier, we were just saying I have a fancy manual lens, so I'm not one of those people that I need to hold it in focus of
Oh, yeah.
me. But yeah. So this is the guy.
Yeah.
Ick and I had been working on the design of this guitar for a number of years. Too long, and then sort of COVID and things put everything behind, and it's really hard to you know get guitars sorted across continents when
Yeah.
you're pretty far away. But it finally came together, and essentially the idea was to blend a few of my main guitars into one and make a really easy guitar for touring. Like I managed to get a Colton case for it on the way to picking it up. And so just so I could easily know I can get it around and travel with it easy and
Yeah.
do a lot of different sounds and gigs with it. So yeah, it's similar to my old Huber. It's a redwood top. It's a mahogany back. This guitar, I'm trying not to hold it in front of my microphone. I disappear. But this guitar is very hollow. Like it's hollow all the way along here. And then
Hmm.
the block stops at the bridge and it's hollow all behind here as well. And
Wow.
so it's a big kind of U shape thing. And so it, like even with here, it's got some sort of serious acoustic tone to it. We did the tailpiece to kind of maximize that area of the guitar, so you wouldn't be dampening it by putting a bridge there, and you would also activate it by it being attached to the back, so it would activate the whole top. What else did we do that's cool? Oh, we did a bolt-on neck, just because I've
Yeah.
been super interested in that lately, and just on how that affects the tone. It's not one I could take off for travel, like
Okay.
because these two extra bolts here are actually under the pickup. The neck is like a long tenon neck joint that Nick does,
Okay.
even with a bolt on. So I'd have to take the neck pickup off to get the neck off, and it's so kind of clean. Yeah, you like that
Yeah,
joint is not so.
because you're really into, you have a thin line Telecaster that you built yourself, to
Mm,
T style
yeah,
guitar, we should
yeah,
say.
yeah.
So you're really into that sound, and so bolt on neck's a big part of that.
Yeah, and I figured it was good to go back to that because the other two guitars I've been playing for years are both set necks. So, like my other Huber was a set mahogany neck, and the Collings I've been playing for a while is a set neck as well. So I just wanted to try something different, and it seems to have worked. And actually, this is like the only electric guitar I have that has a maple neck. Strangely enough, like
Oh,
the thin line I built has a solid rosewood neck because I was in super interested in that idea. So
yeah.
it's nice to go back to a maple neck finally after not having one for like 15 or 16 years. And then it's got some Klopman mini humbuckers in it, and essentially that was just I've always liked mini humbuckers like Firebirds and that sort of thing for their tonality, but um on the road and touring with single coil pickups, it's especially if I'm playing solo somewhere, it does get a little nasty sometimes. And I'm
Yeah.
definitely a neck pickup guy. And if I'm playing solo and it's just going, it's a lot to handle. So
And because a lot of the venues you play,
mm,
you play a lot of traditional music venues, sure, but you also, especially solo, you play some not so traditional venues sometimes, art galleries and whatnot. And you
yeah,
never
yeah,
know
sure.
what the electrical in that building is going to be like.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Australia's pretty good. I will say the difference in the cycle of hum, like what's the US again? I never remember which one's
60.
which.
It's 60
60.
here.
So we're 50 here. And it's like, it's low enough that it's out of the way a little bit. It's never as and our power is generally better. But it's not as annoying. But when I'm in the US, maybe it's because I'm also not used to it. But I'm like, man, that's why humbuckers and noiseless pickups exist. I remember the first time I went into like Rudy's music store in New York and tried out like a telly, and I was like, whoa, what is that? Get rid of that noise. Yeah, so it's sort of one of those things. It's hard for me to sort of reckon with a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and for me,
mm,
it's like, as being such a big fan of P90s that I am, and not a big fan of noiseless P90s. And at some point, I have to admit that it's a ridiculous stance to take, not liking them, but because they've gotten really, really good.
they have now, yeah.
Yeah, but I got so used to, and you play band setting, but I play um one, I don't play as well as you, so I play differently in that way. But
Fair enough.
two, I play really loud, just being really
Mm.
honest. And so the band's loud, everything's loud. I don't notice it, and I I have that motion of turning the volume down during quiet sections down to an art form. I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
where
cool.
that
Just that
volume
quick.
knob is.
Whoosh. Yep.
Yeah,
The
exactly. Or
whoosh.
sometimes what I would do on my guitars that have two volume controls, the Gibson layout, the two
Mm.
volume, two tone, I'll have one set to 0, and I'll just flip the pickup switch and be out of it
Yeah,
real quick.
that's cool. Yeah, it is. You kind of get used to that sort of thing. Yeah, it's funny, but
Yeah.
it's
But you
nice
play
not
you
having
play
to deal with that.
quieter.
I do tend to play quieter on the volume, but
Hmm.
like obviously when you're by yourself or even in a trio thing that's instrumental, it's like
Yeah.
it's pretty obvious, and it's only when yes, there is the case for tone, but it's when it's to the point it's distracting
Yeah.
that, yeah, I just kind of don't want that. But I'm loving these pickups so far. I wasn't 100% sure on going the way of just a straight mini humbucker, but I'd never tried a set, so I was like, let's just do it and see. And it's turned out really good, and I've got really used to the way these dynamically feel, and it's great. That guitar has just been awesome since I've had it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm on a I'd been we it's that whole identifying yourself by the thing you do more than you should. But I was like the P90 guy for so long, and I still love them, but I'm on a big humbucker kick lately, and I wonder if just not having to deal with noise is part of it. But mini humbuckers have been a real revelation to me too, because I didn't use them. They weren't in
Yeah.
guitars I played. Um, I have Firebird pickups in a couple of guitars, and they're mini humbuckers, but the construction's a little different.
Yeah, they're much closer to single coils. And I love the Firebird pickup. That's
Yeah.
what's in my thin line that I built. It's a Seymour Duncan one. They call it the SM1. It's actually slightly smaller, I realized a little while
Really?
ago. Yeah, it's like 3 mils smaller than a normal mini humbucker, the Seymour Duncan one. For whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is for that, but
Hmm.
yeah, because I tried to put one in this guitar because I have one, and I was like, I'm gonna just try it, and then I went to put it in, and I'm like, wait, it doesn't all line up,
That
which I
doesn't
thought it would.
fit.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're an amazing pickup, and because I guess like let's get full nerd for a second. Like a Firebird pickup is essentially closer to maybe two Telly neck pickups side by side as a
Hmm.
humbucker. So it has an Alnico bar in the center, like a rail in the center of each pickup. And so the magnet is close to the string, whereas a mini humbucker, the magnet is at the bottom of the pickup, the same way a humbucker is. So the magnet is still a distance from the string, but the narrower, I'm going to say that with an American accent, the narrower, aperture between the coils gives it a tighter sound. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I gigged my Firebird for the first time a few weeks ago. It was a fill-in gig, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna take one of my most inconvenient guitars to this gig. They're inconvenient because the case is the size of a house.
That's an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, luckily I had room. So, um, in fact, the gig last weekend, I was going to take it as well, but because I was also taking backline to provide for stages, there was no way I was fitting a Firebird case in my
In
car. It
that,
just
yeah.
was not happening. Um, but yeah, I was really surprised. It was the first time I'd played it live, and like really at volume, and I
Mm.
was freaked out how much it sounded like a Telecaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really did. Um, but then, I got the humbuckers that were in my Mulecaster when I ordered it, and you and I actually talked a whole bunch when I was getting ready to order that Mulecaster because I was really struggling over some options. But not that Matt offers that many options on a
Yeah. Yeah.
Mulecaster, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But the humbuckers he puts in those, the mini humbuckers, are spectacular,
Yeah.
and
They're
I've really
beautiful as
gotten into
well.
that sound.
Yeah, actually, I forgot. I have a mini humbucker in my Mavis. I completely forgot about that, and
But
that
yeah,
was sort of part of it. That guitar like responds so well, and it was probably a little bit of like, yes, a tailpiece on this guitar would be cool. It was a little bit of a factor in those things, and
yeah,
yeah,
that's so cool. And of course, uh, got to finally meet Nick at NAMM this year, and the guy just is nicest dude. Makes
mm,
some of the most spectacular guitars that I've ever seen. Um,
yeah, and that's the
and
thing, like as we know, sort of being in the industry and being around these people, like man, 90% of it is about relationship, and it's like you when you meet great people that make great things, you just kind of want to be a part of it. So,
yeah,
and yeah, it was to say I met Nick at NAM in 2010, the first one I went to, and he was just like the best. And then I didn't really get to play his guitars at the show. I think I'd said I had a cutout from Guitar Player magazine of a review of one of his guitars on my wall
that's
already because I
awesome.
was like, wow, a telly that's kind of like a Les Paul and a 335 that's
Hmm.
hollow. And I was like so enamored with it. And then it just happened that I can't remember exactly, doesn't matter. The details don't matter. Essentially, the day after NAM, I ended up with that guitar pretty much that was in that ad, which was it's just called the Redwood is the model. And it's similar to mine, like it's this size, but it's carved top, humbuckers, wraparound bridge, set neck. And but I didn't have an amp. And I literally played that guitar for like 9 hours that day. I was
Wow.
just so blown away, like with the feel of it and the sound. And I was like, man, I got to get one of these in my life. And it took, I think it was another 7 years before I got one of my own. And then, yeah, another 7 years to get this one. But all been worth the wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when a guitar like steals time from you like that, you know something's up with you
Yeah.
gotta get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty like I am an acoustic guy, I guess, at heart. And back then I was very much an acoustic player. Like I used to only tour with an acoustic guitar. And I guess playing that guitar acoustically really, changed my perception of what a good electric guitar could do. Yeah.
Do you still think of yourself as an acoustic guy? Because I feel like since I've known you, it's really been very electric forward. Even in the solo gigs, you're carrying an electric guitar and a pedal board.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's I guess not anymore, but deep down it's sort of a little bit, and there's definitely some acoustic focused projects happening over this next year as well. Um, and sort of getting back into that. But it just through my career, I guess, what's been sort of strange is that up until maybe the last 10 years,
mhm.
uh, I was known as an acoustic player. And all my like big magazine interviews were based around acoustic guitar and had photos of me holding an acoustic guitar. So it's kind of been involved, but ultimately I kind of think of them the same. I don't play the instruments any differently, which a lot of people do. They jump on things and go, oh, I've got to play it this way. When I jump on either, I'm really attacking the instrument the same way.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that in your playing. So, because the way you play, and we're going to talk about gallery here for a second, and then we're going to talk
Yeah,
about
cool.
the new record, which I'm sure I probably mentioned in the title. So we're
Awesome.
not burying a lead or anything.
So
But
the timing is good.
yeah, the timing is very good. Oh, the puns.
It can be endless.
I know. Well, so talking about your playing, and I think I talked about this a little bit the last time you were on, but
Mm.
since then I've gotten to see you play and just listen to more of your music. Um, in the same way, I had the conversation with Adam Levy when he was on. You're an intentional guy, and I think that comes from your being on acoustic guitar for so long, is because when you're an acoustic player and you're up there with an acoustic guitar and that's it, especially when you're an instrumental player, every nuance, every move means something. And I think electric players, I know I do, take that for granted because there's, the every single detail isn't as important. It is as important. Listeners, don't yell it. Please stop screaming.
Yeah, yeah.
It is, and it should be, and it can be. But I really think that influences the way you come across. You have this very intentional, very expressive way of playing electric guitar that a lot of players don't get to.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, and I think it comes across really in an album, especially like Gallery, where that was improv. You just
Yeah, it's nuts.
that's
I still
mad.
get freaked out about it. Um, yeah, so like when I am playing electric guitar, I I've thought about this a lot. I've been listening to a lot of other random podcasts and YouTube things lately. I haven't really done that before, and I've been
Mhm.
just sort of getting into it and hearing what other people have to say about you know everything, and it's really interesting. But it's when I play electric guitar, I really am. And it is with acoustic. I'm really thinking about how the note is produced and literally the sound I'm getting. It is a tone thing. Like you're trying to create this tone, but it's not like I'm not there trying to do it with the latest overdrive pedal I bought,
Right.
which I do anyway. I'm not saying I don't buy overdrive pedals, but I'm also going, okay, so how am I attacking this note? And then how is it responding with the electric guitar acoustically, and then how does that translate through the amp and then into the room of everything? And so and it's like, and especially like when I play an acoustic guitar as well, I pick it up and I usually play a G chord because I just want to hear the guitar ring, and I find a G chord's really good for working out your tuning and intonation. And then I'm really about trying to make the guitar reverberate on itself. Is how do I touch the acoustic so it sounds like it's got reverb on it when it's just me playing guitar, acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And I treat the electric guitar in that same way. I'm not treating it, so I'm letting open strings ring where other people would be muting them, or they would have the hair tie over the top or whatever they used to play really fast, that sort of stuff. So I'm focused on getting those things happening. And when I'm in a setting that I can have a lot of space, as in this album Gallery that I put out, then it becomes a more evident. And so that particular album, yes, was totally improvised. It was a very casual gig at a local art gallery that I'd been playing at a bit through COVID, and no one cares. No one's there to see me. And I just sat in the corner and played, but I just thought to take a good, like my little, it was a Tascam recorder at the time, and what was it? The SE ribbon mic was in front of the amp. So I've got that, and I've got the little Tascam mics recording the room slightly. Um, and yeah, it just, I guess that casual nature of it, and me just being kind of sick of everything at the time that I'd written, I was
Mhm.
really like, oh, I'm just going to create stuff today. Let's see what happens, and not really caring. And that album came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you, I have played a couple of gigs, handful, very few, where I sort of did that kind of thing. I knew that I was background music, that nobody cared what I played, and I could noodle away to my heart's content, just so long as there was something slightly musical in the background. It doesn't sound like that when I do it. But it's 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 such a great record. And then coming into the new record, which I've gotten to listen to ahead of time, which is real cool, which is releasing today, the day this episode is going out. So, listeners, the
Oh,
links are
awesome.
hopefully below. if I
Yeah.
got them in there in time. If not, they will be below if you're
Mm.
listening later. Um, Easy to find. Adam, Bandcamp,
Yep.
Spotify. Go to Bandcamp, buy it on
Yep.
Bandcamp, or
Google.
go to the website, which is linked
Yeah.
below. Um, it see, I was too busy actually pushing it for a second there that I actually lost my train of thought. That's okay.
That's fine.
I've played those gigs, and I've never recorded them because I've been terrified to hear it back.
Mm.
Like I don't want to hear back this thing that I've decided to do, because I don't have that process like you do, and I want to talk about that out. So pulling from Gallery,
Mm.
where you did this improv gig, and you're putting out this new record that it's recorded with a trio. Um, what's your process? But when you're writing the tunes for a new record like this, do you do it sort of the same way? You just start playing and record it and see what ideas come out of it?
Well, the thing is, everything for me is very melody focused. So I still think like a singer songwriter. Sometimes I forget I'm not a singer songwriter. Like I go, yeah. And I think, why does that person get that gig and I don't? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's because I play strange instrumental music. I'm not a singer songwriter, but in my head I am. And so even with something like Gallery that was improvised,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to pick up melodies very quickly. So I tend to go, here's a melody, and I play something, and for whatever reason, even on that improvised thing, I would manage often to get back to that melody at the end of the song, so it sounded like a composed song, and instead of just me doodling for 2 hours, which was exactly what it was.
Right.
But so I'm always thinking that way. So usually things are always with a melody first, a melody idea and progression. Often because I can play everything solo by myself from those years of playing, it's the complete picture. I hear like the groove and the bass line come at the same time as the melody. So it's almost an instantaneous complete picture. And then it's just a matter of finding the material that works. So if I jump into the new record, Timing,
Yeah.
we start talking about that. Essentially, we had a very limited time to record this. Uh, we're talking 5 hours in the studio total, from turning up to leaving to like snacking in between to like chatting, and that was it. And it wasn't. It was mid tour. I was in the US on tour, and then going on to Europe and the UK on that particular one. And it just worked out that we didn't have much time. So the day before, I basically just I have probably like 40 songs I haven't recorded yet. Just simple ideas or whatever. And so I just shortlisted like the first. I think I got to like 4 that we could do with this group. And I'm like, I think we could possibly get 4 songs done, and that would be amazing. And I'll make more stuff later. So I just shortlisted the easiest ones, the ones that I could get through with the guys and they would get quick, and then we'd be able to create things. And that's kind of how it, sort of worked. But then we got through it really quick. So we ended up getting 7 songs done in total with a couple of takes. So the album
Yeah.
is 8 tracks with a second of the Light and Shadows, which was different enough. I couldn't choose which take I was going to use. So I just put both on at the end. And that's how, and yeah, so, and that we did 2 songs from Gallery. So they kind of developed after listening to it. The problem with that Gallery album was that I just put it out. I didn't really think about it. I listened to it like 6 months after I did the gig, maybe longer, because I didn't want to listen to it either. I didn't really think anything of it, and then realized it was actually really cool. And so I just put it out. I didn't do like a big release plan. It was like, oh yeah, I'll just stick it up on streaming 2 weeks before. And it blew up more than any album of mine has recently. And
Wow.
and the issue was that then I had to learn how to play those things.
All right.
So
You had to remember. Oh, I don't remember what I did.
yeah, and a lot of it has some very extensive looping and like deep level diving into not so much my mood on that recording, but my timeline, Strymon timeline, is a lot of the looping and sounds are from that. And it was almost because sometimes at the gig, I was talking to people and they're like, oh, where's that sound coming from? Like there was some musicians there and I was just showing them stuff. I was like, oh yeah, this happens this. And if you listen to that album in headphones, you can hear me talking to people. If you get like, I literally am like, yeah, you just do this. And I was gonna just use a guitar mic and have it really pristine, but I really dug those things when I heard them. So that's in there. And so a few of those songs have then developed. I'm like, wow, that would be great with the trio. So, you know, two of the songs, Light and Shadows and Exhibition, we managed to do as the trio on this record. And then the other songs were just kind of the simplest I could find on paper that the guys would be able to just sort of create on quick and not think too much. So, yeah, that's yeah, and then it was just kind of so unique as a project because we worked on it so quick. We didn't really get time. Sorry, this is the new album now, Timing.
Yeah.
We didn't really get a chance to listen back to things. Like we didn't go to the control room and go, oh, how was that take? Did this work? Um, is the preamp that we plugged the single guitar mic that we used to record the guitar amp really noisy? No, we didn't check that. I found that out later. And so, and there's no other option. So it's literally just, it sounds like it's kind of got tape hiss on the record, but it's basically just how noisy the guitar amp preamp was, the mic preamp that it went into. And so these songs had this kind of unique sound. And I was going to add more songs with a different band to this record some more in Australia, but it was just so perfect as it was as a collection. So yeah, that's where it got left with.
It feels very old school jazz recording.
Mm,
Um, it and I think that comes across, and I think that whole approach. I'm sure listeners like me, you heard, we recorded, 7 songs with multiple takes over 5 hours, and that was it. Gave me an aneurysm. Just the idea of doing that is anxiety inducing.
mm,
Um, but I think a lot of it comes, you played with players you played with before, you know how to
yeah.
communicate. You're an improvisational guy just in general as a player.
Mm,
So what it gave me was like, listeners, I don't want you to think when I say this, when I start talking about old school jazz, that this is the kind of thing that you need to be super highbrow and snooty with. This isn't, Coltrane playing Cherokee. This isn't that kind of thing. It's a much more accessible music to, and I love that
mm,
about it. Um, but it's that, hey, here's a framework of a tune. Here's the melody. Let's go and
mm.
record a couple of takes and just see what comes out. And it's that expressiveness that I was talking about earlier, that just communication between musicians. There's no, okay, we need to put in a click track and then it's got to be this, and oh, we're going to nudge it up a couple of clicks in the chorus, so be ready for that. There's none of that prep work. There's just expression. And I really love that approach to record making.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I actually haven't had the opportunity to do that for a while. And that's what I was really excited about is that my last several studio albums have been the band, we haven't been able to get the band together.
Hmm.
So, like, there was one where the drummer and bass player lived in different cities in Australia. Actually, drummer moved to London from Australia. So, I ended up having to multi-track it all and do it. The album after that, I did record with these same guys, Justin and Joel, but I screwed up. I was so nervous about being in Los Angeles recording an album that my guitar was really bad. So I ended up re-recording all of it
Oh,
when I
wow.
got back to Australia, and then kind of COVID hit. And so I had time to then think about it. So I just did that. The next album we actually did remotely. So they were recorded together in LA and I was in Australia. So it was really exciting to actually be in one room. And I kind of committed to this because we recorded at Justin Glasgow's studio. So Justin's the drummer in the band. He does a lot of producing. And he's like, "Oh, we'll put your amp in this room." And I'm like, "No, we're putting it in the room with us together." I'm like, I want to be next to my amp, even
Hmm.
though, I actually had these little in-ear headphones in, but there's something, that interaction of my guitar with the amp. Like, I realized if it's in a different room to me, I play differently. And so I really wanted to capture the way I really play when the amp is sitting next to me at low volume. And so we had that, but it was that commitment then. It was like, okay, so the guitar's going to bleed into the drums.
Yep.
And actually, the biggest issue in the end was the drums were bleeding into the guitar because I had it so quiet. And so a lot of the reverb on this record, which kind of gives it this old school feel, is actually the reverb I put on the guitar mic. It's the snare leaking into the guitar mic and through the reverb. It's really cool. Like, just those old school sort of mixing things you got to do with recording. Yeah. But that's the fun thing, to actually be in a room with people and create and go, okay, that's it. It's done.
I love that approach. And I do love that whole amp in the room thing. It's got the vibe of the recording. The thing that I got out of it that makes it, some people want to call it lo-fi because like there's like that old guerrilla style of like punk rock, bunch of kids sitting up in a basement with the microphones and just playing. But then that's also how like a lot of those classic jazz records were made. It's how even a lot of other genres, you just got your players in the room, you got your mic set up, you hit record. It's okay if there was bleed because there weren't going to be any overdubs. You were just going to play it. And you play it a few takes and then you move on to the next tune. Um and it has some of that vibe of just it's like being at the gig in a lot of ways. You don't get some of the, I don't want to say sterileness, like there's all these buzzwords that my brain wants to throw out that I don't want to say because that's not true. You can multi-track a record and have all kinds of vibe and energy if it's done right. But it definitely came across this, three players in a room having a blast playing these tunes.
Mm.
And it also has sort of that classic, melody, improv section, return to melody, closed song out kind of thing going on that I really, really, really enjoy listening to. And then I like watching videos of y'all play, and you sent me a couple that of the takes, and it's really great. And I loved, there was one part where the camera kept rolling after the tune, and it was like, I think that's the take. Like, there's that moment when you're done, you're like, oh, that was it, and then you just move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
I, I love that.
yeah, that was cool. And that video, it should be out or it might be just about to come out by the time this is up. But yeah, like, that is a really cool insight into the take. And it was just cool that I had that there. And but yeah, that's basically it. Like, we just get to the end, we're like, yeah, that was cool. And I'm checking my phone. I think I was flicking through what charts we've got to do. I'm going to say that song was probably at the midpoint of the session. So I was
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, what else can we get through? We had a show that night, so I was probably checking, like, how are the ticket sales for the gig that night that we had to do as well.
Yeah.
And then we're just talking about, what are we doing for dinner? Uh, and it's really, but that is, like, those guys are great friends, and that's kind of how it works. The other thing with that video is also, it kind of gives you an insight into the recording. There are some crossfades in the video, you'll see, and literally, it's that take on the album is a blend of two different takes. So, like, you'll see where it actually crosses to another take somewhere for a second and then back to one take. And then I remember in that song, I think I just played the intro too long. The intro just went for too long before it came in because I was trying to just set up the feel really well. And so I edited, like, cut it down to like a half of the intro or maybe less. But you can kind of see that in the crossfade of the video. So um, I'm keen to kind of show people that. But what's interesting is, like, we didn't play to a click at all.
Right.
So, like, our timing between takes is that consistent, and the feel of things, that you can do that stuff later, which is pretty incredible and a real testament to, like, Justin and Joel as well keeping me in check playing. So pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
I was just gonna say that as you were talking about that, because y'all didn't play to a click. And sometimes it's not just the time that changes between takes. The feel can have a very slightly different feel between takes. You can hear it
Mm,
in some of those classic jazz recordings, or like some, like the old some people may have listened to it. If you've not, listeners, I understand it's a hard record to listen to if you're not into blues sounds. There's a Robert Johnson compilation of all of the songs he ever recorded, right? And it's like
yeah,
29 songs, but there's 40 some odd tracks because they have a second take of
think of
several
it all.
songs. And you hear those second takes and you're like, oh, the vibe's totally different. Like it,
Mm,
even though it's one guy on a guitar, like, oh, his feel changed between these takes. And so
yeah,
you couldn't compile them like that because they wouldn't translate. So to have
yeah.
three three dudes in a room playing live without a click and it be that consistent is that's underrated musicianship right there.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to have. And obviously that wasn't the same in every song. It just was particularly in that song. I think most of the other takes are just the one take start to end, but yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how things progress. And then with the case of Light and Shadows, which is it's very improvisational on the drums and the guitar now, because it's like I can just kind of do a bunch of different things. It's just in G major, and it really is about creating an emotion and an atmosphere rather than, a specific thing, because the bass line is the same thing the whole way through because it's from that gallery album where I looped this bass line. And so Joel's just kind of sitting there, just keeping this thing going. And um, when we played it, I like the take at the start is very similar almost to like the single I released of it,
Hmm.
to the original gallery recording. It has those elements there. And then the second take at the end was very, I don't know, I think I just started playing it again, just sort of messing around. We weren't really talking, we were just playing music. And then Justin came in and he was like tuning some drums. And so that's at the start. And then yeah, and so it kind of ended up in a totally different place. And yeah, that thing of alternate takes in these sorts of recordings gets, well, one, really difficult sometimes to choose which one you're going to go with on the
Yeah.
record. And then, um, and yeah, really fun to actually go through later and go, oh, wow, we really played this one different to the other one. And then
Yeah.
sometimes it's like the first take we were learning how to play the song. And sometimes the first take we were learning how to play the song, but that's what nailed it. And I think there's a couple of those as well, but I haven't gone
Yeah.
over it again to check. Mm.
And then it gives you extra content for the deluxe edition later down the road, take
Exactly.
two, or
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, totally.
so shifting into like gear just a little bit again and going back to, because I rewatched because I knew we
Let's
were going
do
to be
it.
recording this week, so I rewatched the That Pedal Show episode. And
Mm.
you are a very minimal gear guy as a guitarist. Like you have a few things you use. I used basically, if I remember correctly, on that recording or the show, it was a boost, an overdrive, the mood, and a flint. And then I think you were using a Line 6 DL4 Mark II as like your looper,
Yeah, for
if I
sure.
remember correctly. Um,
Correct.
so that's a really minimal rig, and I think it's really interesting. Is that what you used for this record? Is that how you still did it this
Yeah,
time?
well, so this record was recorded on that tour. So it was
Okay.
recorded the week before I did that pedal show, maybe,
Okay.
or 2 weeks. And so I only had what I had on tour, which fits in my suitcase.
Hmm.
So specifically for this record, yes, I used that tiny pedal board. So Vemorem Booty G
Hmm.
Boost, which I think is more of an overdrive pedal. It's too dirty for me to consider it a boost, but it's a beautiful full range overdrive thing, and it's great. I have the Free the Tone SOV2, which is also just a really amazing feel thing. Like the way it feels when you play it is just amazing. That being said, I only use those on two of the songs. The most of the album is actually clean. So I was using a studio signature, a two rock studio signature combo, which is mine, which lives in Los Angeles. It's been there since I lived there in
Wow.
2019. It's one of the NAMM prototypes of that amp. So it's got some funny things in it, but I'm not saying that it's special or messed up, but it could be both. I don't know, but it's great. And so I use that. So the reverb in that as well. I also use the Flint for more reverb just to get a longer tail, because the Studio Sig, being a smaller tank, has a shorter tail length, and I like everything to be a little bit longer. So there's both reverbs going, and it was quiet, man. Like, I'm going to say it was like 8 o'clock on the master volume
Wow. So way
for
back.
this album. Yeah, and that's kind of where I like it. On that particular amp, I love it at, like, if I don't like it past 9 o'clock. So I always, even at shows, I'm only getting to 9 o'clock on that amp when I use it, and it's really beautiful how it sounds, and I love the way it sounds on this record. And trying to go, oh, how can I get one of these in Australia? But it's nice to have it as my Los Angeles amp. And then and I only had one guitar at this stage on tour. I didn't have the new Huber yet because I was picking it up the following week.
Oh, yeah.
So this album is entirely recorded on my Collings 470. Which is
Oh, that piece of junk.
this guy. So I got this. We met at the Fretboard Summit, or that weekend. The first one they held in Chicago. I don't know what year that was. Was that 2022?
Yes.
Maybe.
Because wow, I've been to 3 now, so that has to be right.
Yeah. So 2022,
22, 23,
and
24,
so this guitar was there at the show,
Mm-hmm.
and it was actually the guitar that Julian Lage did his concert on. And I'd played a few of these, and I was like, man, I want that one. Like, this one just felt right to me and spoke to me. And and I was always really enamored with the construction of this guitar and the design behind it from every point of view. So except for Bigsby's, because I hate Bigsby's. So this one, the week after I got it, I took to it with a drill and put a G for guitar tailpiece on it. And that's what it's been ever since. And I found the guitar reacts so much better this way. The tension is better, and it became more lively because can we do this? Will it work? You can see there's a gap now between the tailpiece and the top, whereas the Bigsby sits flat on the top and dampens the acoustic response to the guitar.
Yeah.
So it made it just totally mine as well. And so this is what I played entirely on the album, was this guitar.
I love a guitarist that is willing to and does, like, all right, I've got this, aspirational piece of gear to a lot of players, and it's like, day 2, drill. Let's go. Because if it's not doing the thing you need it to do, make it do the thing you need it to do.
Yeah, and it's, actually, I probably copped more praise for this modification than anything else.
Really?
And Collings do offer this guitar with a tailpiece now. That's similar design, but not with that on it. So
yeah,
but anyway,
not with a G on it.
G for guitar. Actually, it was really close. I was going to put a piece of metal on it, and then it did turn into a C, which would have been kind of cool.
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool.
But no. And so so that guitar, and it's funny, like, talking about single coils, this is a little bit one of those guitars that, yes, even on that tour when I only had this guitar, the hum was pretty brutal in a couple of rooms playing solo. But I just kind of sometimes turn the wrong way to the audience if I was and apologize. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I've just got to face this way for a second because it's too much. But yeah, so this is what's on the record, and it is a really expressive and beautiful kind of instrument, and has that same sort of acoustic, response that all of my guitars, I guess, do now. And yeah, but it's funny that this is the guitar that just ended up on that album, and I think the songs that are on it sort of spoke to it in this way because it's one of the only guitars I own that's shorter scale as well.
Yeah, I can't remember what's the scale length on those. I can't
They're
remember.
24.9, I think.
Yeah,
24, no, sorry, 24 and 7/8, I think it is. So it's like
interesting.
that's the Collings scale length. It's like,
Yeah,
it's not as short as a Gibson. It's not a straight 25, but it feels great. And it's like, yeah. So this is the guitar on the record.
I've told Nelly over at Collings that 470 JL is the guitar that every time I pick it up, and it's been every one of them. It just breaks my brain how good that guitar is.
Yeah.
I really, really love those guitars. To the point that I had to have something made that was similar. Because I didn't have the money I didn't have Collings money. I could, if I sold enough stuff, I could do it. But there's a part of me that's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I sold a few things to get that one.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we do. I like to tell people that guitar pedals are actually just guitar and amp savings accounts. So I hold on to them until I have enough of them to sell them to get what I want.
Yeah, the problem is you've then got to keep the boxes and not put Velcro on them and not.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I put dual lock.
Tea and coffee on things. Yeah.
Well, I tell guitarists all the time, if you use dual lock, it peels off cleanly on the back, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can use less of it, a lot less of it.
Totally.
But
yeah, so I was going to say the gear thing is very simple for me, and it is because I've found myself just playing cleaner and cleaner all the time, and just that is dependent on the two rock thing. I will say, if I've got to play through an amp at a show that isn't a two rock, I probably engage the overdrive pedals to try and get that feel, feel there that I can kind of respond to. But something about the two rocks, even when they're clean, have this dirty thing to it. It's strange. I don't want to damage their reputation by going, well, they're always dirty, because then that'll just be a field day in comments as well. But
I know. I think it's just a harmonics thing. There's a thing in the way in the sound that doesn't happen. Maybe it's what people are describing when they talk about how they're unforgiving or they're exposing, or maybe it's tied into some of that everything is very there, no matter what you do. Whereas you play, a deluxe reverb, or like me, a super reverb, you can sort of, cover a multitude of sins with the sounds of those amps.
Yeah. See, I've been playing two rocks so long, I find it's the opposite now.
Really?
I can't achieve, like, I have a 67 Vibrachamp, and that's an extraordinary thing, but I think it's because it's so small that when you do have it at 3 or 4, it is pushing everything, so it kind of has the feel there. But yeah, if I have to play through a Fender, I do struggle a bit these days. It's sort of the opposite thing. But I've been playing two rocks for nearly 20 years. And before that, I was playing like a Mesa Boogie Mark II-C that had been modified to be more like a Dumble.
Okay.
So we've done
that's
some
funny
work.
that you say that, because I think of the Mark II-C as like the Metallica amp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And actually, I sold mine recently to a guy that fronts a Metallica show. I'd held onto that amp because it was like, I don't know, I'd done so much work to it and so many things. I just kept it. But yeah, but they're also like the Fusion amp, it's like that's
Yeah.
kind of what like everyone was using before they got Dumbles, and it was that same era of the start of cascading gain. And so they are pretty amazing kind of amps as well, like for that thing, but they're not known for that.
Yeah,
And yeah, that
I
was
don't think I've
essentially
ever I was gonna say I don't think I've ever played the Mark V is the oldest Mark series Mesa Boogie I've
mm,
ever played. I don't think I've ever played any of the one, two, threes or fours.
yeah. Well, when I first started getting into like this whole Dumble thing, and essentially it was like I'd heard Larry Carlton and Robin Ford, and I'm like, oh, what overdrive pedal do they use? And in those days, like late 90s, your overdrive pedal options were a Tube Screamer or a Boss.
Mhm.
And that was it. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything else. So I was like, well, do they use the Boss Blues Driver or do they use a Tube Screamer? I don't know. And then I was like, they use a Dumble? What is that? And then I, did some research on Yahoo and getting more vintage.
Little Alta Vista search.
Yeah, and found that they use these amps called Dumbles, and they're like $10,000 or something, which was what they were about then.
Yeah. And
Which
it's
seemed
mad to think now we're like,
insane. And so yeah, and so then I was like, oh, okay, well, and then I actually found K&M Analog Designs, which was the original name for Turok at that stage, and they were really expensive too, and no way I could get one to Australia. So then I was like, oh, well, what's sort of similar to this? And I did all the research, and the Mark II C was the closest thing. And I managed to just find one at a local guitar store for not much money because mine didn't have the graphic. So you couldn't do the V curve to get the Metallica sounds.
oh, gotcha.
So no one really wanted it. So, yeah, anyway, it was a great kind of thing of like, I guess, starting that whole crazy tone search into things and then looking at getting it modified to get an EQ bypass put in it and change some of the tone values so it would be more dumbly-ish.
Do you think the way you play clean, even sort of pushed clean, but still
Mm.
clean, harkens back to all those years doing acoustic gigs?
Totally. Yeah, because it treats it the same way. It's like once you start to, and I think I do actually, I set up everything the same way. I'm one of those people that will buy new overdrive pedals and they sound exactly the same as the last one because I just set them all the same. That's what I'm trying to do. And it's that thing of like, I want it to break up when you're playing two notes at a time, but maybe not break up when you're playing one note at a time, which is the same thing an acoustic does. Like when you hit it harder and play two notes at a time, it does crack under the pressure. And so
Yeah.
I've just been trying to make the electric guitar do what an acoustic guitar does. And I think that's how I've got at this sort of unique way of playing because I'm treating things that same way to have that same sort of response. And, going back to actually why I started doing it was not on purpose. It was when I first started talking to Turok again. So I got one many years ago. I visited the factory the first time I ever went to the US, and they heard me play. Mac Skinner was actually working there still. He wasn't anything. He was just in the assembly line. So I met Mac then. We have a photo together from almost 20 years ago. And I managed to buy the Jet from them, a Jet combo, which I had for many years, and I probably still regret selling, to be honest. But they, so when I started talking to them again, they're like, "Oh, we want to start doing like clinics and installs in Europe, but we can't really take a band around. We need someone that can play by themselves, but we don't really want someone that plays to backing tracks. Um,
Yeah.
would you be interested in doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." And but it was the first time I ever went on the road with just an electric guitar, and I was really nervous about it. And what ended up happening was every night I had the best tone ever. I was like, whereas when you play acoustic solo, and I grew up, like touring with Tommy Emmanuel and people like that. Like my first solo acoustic show was literally opening for Tommy Emmanuel when I
Yeah,
was
we talked about
19.
that last episode, and it's
Yeah.
still mad.
Yeah. So but I was used to this level of sound quality when you play acoustic guitar, that it needs to sound like the entire band and be at a huge volume so that you can get the dynamics and range. And what I found touring was that rarely happens. And sound guys so often with acoustic guitar just want to take out all the bottom end, add lots of treble, and compress it. And then for me, it was just like, well, you've destroyed everything that I need to play a gig. But then with an electric guitar, it was like you plug in and it just sounded great. And then when I did have a sound guy, they would put a mic in front of the amp and just make it louder, and they would go
Yeah.
great. And it was more full range and bigger than most of the acoustic shows. And after that time, I was like, wow, this actually translates my music better than trying to struggle with sound guys getting my acoustic guitar to sound right when I can't tour with my own sound guy. Mm.
Yeah. And this is why I tell people don't trust the sound guy. Play real amps.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a thing.
Oh yeah, that's that's a whole other conversation. We might take that one over to Patreon.
Yeah,
Which,
for sure.
listeners, we are getting close to the end of this episode, so we are going to go over to Patreon and we're going to chat a little more about music and approach, and I'm gonna bug Adam about all kinds of things because. I've said it before, Adam. You're the kind of guitar player I wish I was. I think I'm a little late
Very
in the
nice.
game to figure it out, but I'm going to steal a few things.
Let's do it.
But before we go, where all can people find you? The links are going to be below as best I can get them there, but where else can everybody can find you and your new record timing?
Yes, essentially just Adam Miller into Google. My website is adammiller.com.au, which is a little Australian extension on the end. And that's the easiest way. And then I'm usually Adam Miller Guitar on most of the socials. I think there's one I'm not, that I screwed up. But anyway, yeah, it's around. I'm pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Yeah, you're easy to track down. Listeners, all of those are in the description below or in the show notes, depending if you're over on YouTube or if you're over on a podcast platform. If you want to hear the rest of this conversation, you can go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast. $5 a month gets you extra episodes every time I drop an episode. Additionally, I am going to start, this is me saying it, I hinted at it last episode, I'm going to start dropping some backing tracks over there on the Patreon page, and I'm going to actually post them for free. So you can actually subscribe to the Patreon for free. And just get updates when I put things out. Well, I'm going to start putting those out because I'm starting to record some backing tracks to do some demo work. And I'm just going to start dropping those if you want to start playing along to them. And I'll try to remember to actually write the chord progression down, but I may make you use your ear. We'll see. It's going to be a good time. We're going to go over to Patreon and chat a little more. Click the like, click the subscribe, all those things, rate, review. Please do those. But for Adam and for myself, until we see you next time, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.